Hi, I'm Earl Bowerman. I'm a candidate for Washington's 3rd Congressional District, and I'm delighted to take this opportunity today to talk to you a little bit more in detail about my candidacy. Well, my background in agriculture started when probably I was about 8 years old and my family went into the dairy business. We had Jersey cows. As you know, in the dairy business, cows have to be milked twice a day. We had a little over 100-acre farm, and on this farm we grew hay, we grew other types of crops. We had tractors, we had chickens and other assorted animals, and we drank raw milk. We had fresh eggs. We had home-churned butter, and that's the way I grew up. Well, during the time that I was working in the dairy, I would also be a member of 4-H, and as a member of 4-H, I used to show dairy calves and dairy cows at the local county fair. So my education then stemmed from that, in that I got a scholarship, a small scholarship from Sears, and it stipulated on the scholarship that you had to enroll in agriculture. So after I graduated from high school, I enrolled at the University of Arkansas and majored in agriculture. And then I went to Rutgers University, where I received an assistantship that paid for my books, paid for my tuition, and gave me a small monthly stipend so that I could have a room and board and so on. I earned a PhD, and from there I went to the Texas A&M University, joined the faculty as assistant professor in the Department of Soil and Water Science. I stayed at the University of Texas A&M for 4 years. Well, my agricultural background prepares me to deal with issues in Southwest Washington because, number one, Southwest Washington is an agricultural paradise. We have abundant resources here. We have abundant forestry. We have abundant fisheries. We have abundant agriculture. We have so many resources here that are not being utilized because of government programs that prevent us from doing that. One of the tragedies in Washington's 3rd Congressional District is that about 6 or 7 counties are economically suppressed according to the state of Washington. There is no reason for this. We live in one of the richest areas in Washington, and we should have a vibrant economic community. The Farm Bill recently passed. It was $830 billion. Number one, the Farm Bill is misnamed. Less than 30% of the Farm Bill has anything to do with farming. About 75% or so has to do with welfare, has to do with food stamps. Food stamps should not be in the Farm Bill. Food stamps should be with welfare and other agencies, and the reason that the food stamps are in the Farm Bill, it was to get Northern Democrats to vote for the Farm Bill. So they put it in there and hoped that they could get support for the farmers. Well, the problem with the Farm Bill for the farmers is that it supports tobacco. Why in the world would we give tax money to tobacco farmers to make a product that is so unhealthy that the other arm of the federal government tells you not to smoke? Why would we give federal tax dollars to peanut growers? I believe in free enterprise in farming, and I just don't see a reason for aid to farmers. This was started during the Depression when they had a shortage of food. We don't have a shortage of food anymore. We have an overabundance. So I think free enterprise should be in farming and that the government should get out of the way. $800 billion, my goodness, that's a lot of money to spend from the government on programs that I feel are not necessary. The upside of the Farm Bill was that there was a work requirement for food stamps that was placed. I support that. But the overall concept of $800 billion is something that I cannot support. I think it needs to be reduced dramatically. I think food stamps need to be taken out of the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and put where it belongs, in some kind of Health and Human Services or somewhere like that. Reduced federal spending, I think, is one of the most important things that a Republican can safeguard. And one of the ways that you reduce federal spending is you refuse to raise the debt limit. And I think all bills, all funding bills should be predicated on this past year's revenue that came in. And I am not in favor of growing the government. I'm in favor of reducing the government and reduce the number of funding programs and the amount of funding per program. I would reduce federal spending by recognizing states' rights. I think many of the programs that are federal programs now should be state programs, should be handled at the local level. And I don't see any reason to have programs that are dictated from Washington that are implemented at the state level where there's not communication, there's not understanding of the programs, but it's basically the federal government taking our tax dollars and returning them to the state with a number of strings attached. And one of the programs that I would highlight like this is the Department of Education. The Department of Education's budget is $80 billion. They have thousands of employees doing who knows what, but it's not helping education. Look at the performance of our students. Our students' performance has not increased during the time that the Department of Education has been in existence. This was a Jimmy Carter boondoggle. The national debt is, I believe, over $21 trillion now. That's a disgrace. One of the reasons that it's so high is because of our imbalance of trade. We're not generating enough revenue to cover our debts. I read recently that 3.5 million jobs are lost in the U.S. because of the trade deficit to China. Now, I hear about all these tariffs and how people are damning them, but they shouldn't be. They're to protect the American worker, the American family, and our way of life. So I think we deserve better than to buy and sell hamburgers to each other. We want heavy industry. And by the way, I've read since the tariffs have been put into place that there is a paper mill that's in the Southwest Washington who has started up an additional paper making machine. I think that is fabulous. I read yesterday that a steel mill, I believe it was in Birmingham, has been reopened and they're working again. Why? Because of tariffs. And there will be some bumps that people will not like because some of the raw products are going to be increased in price. That's okay. That will be offset by increased numbers of jobs for American workers and for families. So I totally support that idea. It's going to hurt our agricultural products in the short run, but it's also going to protect our agriculture. For example, go to the store and buy some pressed ham and look where it came from. It didn't come from the United States. It came from Northern Europe. One of the reasons why I am against price supports is that it causes an overproduction of agricultural products. It creates an artificial market. An example is in the milk industry. Right now, as we speak, there is 1.3 billion pounds of cheese stored. Why? Because there is an oversupply of milk, and milk products are more easily stored as cheese rather than as powdered milk or other fresh products. Why is there overproduction? Because of government subsidies. I'm in favor of reducing and actually over time eliminating government subsidies in agriculture because it stimulates overproduction, costs the taxpayers money, and creates a false market. We did not have a market for so much milk. So what do? We store it. And it costs a great deal of money for subsidies and also for storage. We'll never eat 1.3 billion pounds of cheese. My position on the Second Amendment does not waver. The Second Amendment says what it says, and it's very clear that the American people have the right to bear arms. I see no reason for implementation of additional gun laws, and I would be against any such movement in that area. Oftentimes guns are attacked because they try to show, they being the Democrats, try to show a cause and effect between the number of guns and gun violence. And it's not credible, it can't be done. And I see no reason to talk about gun control at all. I am in favor of convicted felons losing some of their constitutional rights as it relates to guns, in that if one is a convicted felon, by definition, you lose some of the constitutional rights, such as voting, and I think also the right to own a gun. I would also think, I'd also support people who are mentally ill, who are certifiable mentally ill, and are a danger to themselves or a danger to others, not being allowed to have guns. The tragedy that happened in Florida at the high school was something that should never have happened. It happened not because guns were available. It happened because the school campus was not constructed to protect the students. If the campus had had a perimeter fence with cameras, a perimeter fence that was not climbable, had had a single entrance, had had alarms and so on, and had secure doors into the school building, the person that committed mayhem would never have gotten in. I see no relationship between gun ownership and the tragedy that happened in Florida. Also, I would be in favor of guns being inside the schools, and being available to trained personnel in case there was a situation like in Florida in which the perpetrator got through the barriers. So in the case of the tragedy in Florida, I see no relationship between guns and what happened in Florida. I never heard of mass shootings in a school. And I think we had a culture where we didn't put up with a lot of nonsense and this kind of behavior. And we didn't coddle criminals, and we didn't coddle people in high schools that misbehaved. They were kicked out. Let's talk about the tolls on Interstate 205 and Interstate 5. Interstate 205 and Interstate 5 go from Southwest Washington into Oregon, into Portland mainly. Portland wants to put up tolls to penalize the people from Southwest Washington who work in Oregon. Now, the people who work in Oregon that are from Southwest Washington pay income taxes in Oregon. 75 or 72,000, something like that, commute daily from Southwest Washington into Portland, in the greater Portland area. We're opposed to that. Now, recently, the people in Oregon had a committee, I think, of 25 people. Only one person on that committee voted against the plan for tolls, and that person was from Southwest Washington. Now, this decision is that the Oregonians are making will be forwarded to Washington. That's where the decision for tolling will be made. I want to be your representative, to be in Washington to stop that. I want to go over and see Donald Trump and tell him that he carried Southwest Washington during the election, and he should help protect the folks in Southwest Washington from these tolls, because the tolls, the money will go to Oregon. And Oregonians can use that money as they see fit. Now, our representative now, Jaime, has said, well, these tolls, if they're for tolls for use, we can call them fees. And she's not opposed to fees for use. Fees, tolls, it's all money. It's all a hindrance. It's all a handicap that is put on the people from Southwest Washington. And so I would totally oppose any kind of tolls on a federal highway. The sea lions are a major problem in the Columbia River and its tributaries. There are 300,000 sea lions. In 1972, when the Marine Mammal Protection Act was passed, there were 10,000. Now there's 300,000. They're destroying their ecological base. And now they're in the Columbia River seeking food. Sea lions do not belong in the Columbia River or its tributaries. I'm in favor of lethal removal of sea lions in the Columbia River. I think that any sea lion in the Columbia River is subject to removal. I would be in favor of the Indian tribes removing the sea lions, harvesting the sea lions, and then selling the products of the harvest of the sea lions. The pellets are very valuable. Other products of the seal are very marketable. Sea lions do not belong in fresh water. This is not their natural habitat, and they shouldn't be allowed in here. They're just like rats, shall we say. They're so thick, they can't be managed by the fishermen, and they're destroying one of the most valuable resources we have in the Columbia River, and they should be gotten out. We don't have a problem with sea lions when they're managed in the Columbia River, but we will continue to have it as long as we allow them to propagate in the river and become increased in numbers. During the election of 2016, in the presidential election that was in November, I voted for Donald Trump. I was appalled when I read and when I heard that our congressional representative said in October, about a month before the election or so, that she felt that President Trump was unfit to be president, and therefore she would not vote for him, and she would vote for the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. That was extremely upsetting because that was an influential statement, could influence other Republicans, and if other Republicans had followed the lead of our Congresswoman, Jaime Herrera Beutler, Hillary Clinton would be president. Now, just recently, President Trump appointed someone to the Supreme Court. Just recently, it was announced that he will be making his second appointment. Can you imagine how our life would be different if Hillary Clinton were now making the second appointment to the Supreme Court? When she made that announcement, I decided I was going to run 2 years ago because I could not believe that she would give the Democrats an advantage over the Republicans. I support President Trump's agenda, and I am proud to do so. I am very excited about what he's accomplished since he was elected in 2016. I support his overall objective to make America great again. And by that I mean the individual, raise the standard of living, the quality of life of the individual. And I believe very firmly that the number one objective of any representative in government should be that every family in the district that they represent should be financially self-sufficient. If a family is financially self-sufficient, then the importance of all these government programs to assist with that and assist with that fall to the wayside because they're not needed. So what can the government do? Reduce regulations, reduce taxes, reduce overhead for doing business. Government overhead for doing business should be zero. And when government overhead in doing business is zero, what happens? They have more prosperity within the company and they hire more people have prosperity, more people pay taxes. And this is one of the reasons why I embrace the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve says that you get more government revenue when the families are taxed at around 20% or so. And that includes most all taxes. So I am very much in favor of reducing the cost of government in doing business and put money in people's pockets. Illegal immigration is a major problem in this country. I support President Trump's agenda on illegal immigration, on the border wall. I think we have to get control of it. On June 26th, I believe it was, our representative voted on a bill, voted yes on a bill that would have given a pathway for citizenship for people in this country illegally. I am totally opposed to someone coming in this country illegally and be put on a pathway to citizenship. It should be done in a legal way for people that are coming here legally according to the process and getting citizenship over a period of time. But I would never, never have voted for this bill, I believe it was on June 26th. And our congressional representative, Jaime, a Republican, voted to support this bill for a pathway to citizenship for the illegals. People she doesn't even know. I can't believe it. One of the most important things that a representative does is represent the people. And so if you come to my office as a businessman and you want to see me, you'll be seen. I won't ask my aides how much money our visitor has donated. I will ask if our visitor is from the 3rd Congressional District. If he is or if she is, they go to the front of the line because I'm here to serve Washington, Southwest Washington, the 3rd Congressional District. And that's my only job. Why else would I see anyone else? I won't forget which Washington I work for, never will.